Hi, I'm Jonathan from Turnwall Architects. I wanted to show you how I actually start a project, specifically everything you have to think about before you actually start designing. I'm going to take you through the initial stages of a recent project where we're turning a 150-year-old Victorian school into 3 homes. Now, I've put timestamps on the video if you're in a rush, but if you've got 5 minutes, then grab a cup of tea and I'll walk you through how we go from a derelict building to that first day of designing. First off, it has to start on site together. You can't do this through Zoom or WhatsApp. You just can't get a feel for the building through a screen. You need to walk the site together and see if you can get along, basically. You're going to be working together for many months, and that first walk around is where you start to get that initial understanding. You have to gauge the language of the project as well. Some clients are developer minded and they know the regulations and the process, whereas others are totally new to this. So you have to know where everyone's coming from before you can get an idea of where you're going. When I first see a site, I'm looking for the good stuff, but I'm also looking for the headaches. I'm scanning for the views and the light and the lovely Victorian windows and fine features, but I'm also flagging the constraints, the planning issues, the potentially grumpy neighbours, the features around the site that might inhibit the build. It's a quick sort of juggle between the client's dream and what the site might actually allow. My job is to try and find a balance before we start designing. It seems nonsensical to me to just knock down a building with over 150 years of history. It's all about the soul of the place, and this school has so many memories, both personal and collective, for the local community. However, beyond the aesthetics, there's the embodied energy in the fabric of the building. And I'm always looking for ways that we can use that as much as possible and hopefully make it even better. Thankfully, in this case, the clients were very much of the same mind. Why start from a clean slate when the existing slate is so good? We also have to talk about timeframes. Now, it's kind of a cliche that clients want to be in by Christmas, but there's always a massive hurdle before anything happens, and that hurdle is planning permission. Again, before I start designing, I have to be looking at what expertise we might need to bring on board to make the necessary assessments, such as ecology or tree assessments or the potential for contaminated land. All this stuff takes time to put together, and we need to make a judgment early on what kind of consultants might be needed so that we can commission them ahead of time while I'm doing the designing with the client, and then we can all meet together and get the planning submitted in good time. Basically, I'm trying to get the headaches out of the way so that we can actually start drawing and we aren't tripped up by a bat survey or a soil sample later down the line. Something else which has to be negotiated before we design are the fees. Now, I'm pretty open about fees, and for me, the hourly rate is kind of an enemy of creativity. On this project, like with most projects, I went with a fixed fee approach. It lets the client budget properly and feel like they can actually explore ideas without the pay meter running in the back of their mind. Ultimately, there's no perfect method of pricing projects, and I'd rather focus on the design and enjoying the process with the client than be looking at the stopwatch. So that's why I go with a fixed fee approach most of the time. I've also got to assess the health of the building. This school is over 150 years old. It's been neglected basically for the last 25 years, and the weather has been winning the battle. The phrase "a stitch in time saves 9" is no more appropriate than here. And on a building like this, you have to look for the easy wins. Things like fixing the gutters, repointing the brickwork, letting the walls breathe, and getting the earth away so there's not as much moisture getting into the building. The design doesn't really matter if the bones of the building aren't sound to start with. You also have to decide with a building like this what makes it special. The Gothic arches and the trusses are these incredible storytellers of Victorian engineering, but you can't keep everything on show and meet modern structural regulations and insulation standards at the same time. So it's about creating a hierarchy. What do we want to celebrate? What can take a back seat? You have to work with the fabric of the building and not against it. Then once all this is in place, I can actually start designing and putting pen to paper, but I try to limit the output to 3 initial designs or layouts or concepts. Any more than that, and I think things start to get confusing. This is all the more relevant these days with AI tools that are just churning out, millions of ideas. The job of an architect more and more is a curator as well as a designer to sort of filter out the noise. At the same time, I'm providing designs that will fit the brief, but also designs that kind of might deviate from the brief. I'm sort of playing devil's advocate, as it were, and bringing wildcard ideas to the table. What I'm trying to do is just spark maybe an idea of doing something slightly differently, or maybe one piece of a design can fit into another piece that you hadn't thought of. Nothing's really set in stone at this stage, so it's really the best time to ask, what if we did it this way? I hope that was interesting and helped you understand the initial stages of a project. As you can probably tell, it's not the case of just turning up and here's the designs. There's quite a lot of work that goes into setting up a project before you actually commit pen to paper. But if you've got any further questions or thoughts on this, then please do get in touch or drop me a comment and I'll get back to you. All right, bye for now.